So, I've made 3 videos about me looking back at my old art and cringe reviewing it, which is essentially just me cringing from my old art and talking about the problems. Those videos are all around 1 year old, and I said this in each of my videos. I have way too many drawings. I skipped over a lot for this video. Yeah, so I skipped over a ton of my old artwork. Not really for any reason, I just wanted to move faster through the years of my drawing journey. Although a lot of you loved those videos, and that's why I'm making a part 4. There was over 200 drawings I skipped over, so this isn't something that'll be done anytime soon. Expect more of these videos in the future. Anyways, in this video I'll be cringe reviewing some of my old art. Let's get into it. Drawing 1. This drawing is of my 2 characters Emmy and Moon, which some of you might be familiar with, but I've never talked about this drawing of them in particular, because there are issues with it. Mostly with the anatomy on Emmy. Like, seriously, what is going on with Emmy's proportions? Her chest is drawn like a balloon. I clearly didn't know how to draw the female anatomy. Then her torso is super long and just doesn't end, since there's no lines drawn for the start of her leg area. Like, there definitely should be. And if that wasn't bad enough, her enormous tail darts out from her body. Plus, it's like connected to it. I know that's usually the case for tails, but when you draw a character with a tail, you mostly always draw a line for their body and add the tail behind that. So it just ends up looking really weird along with everything else. Moon is a lot better, although he also suffers a bit from the long torso issue and having a tail that's connected to the body. Overall, it's a cute drawing of the two, there's just some big issues with the anatomy on them. Drawing 2. This was a drawing of a Cookie Wolf character of mine from long ago. I don't remember their name, and to be honest, I never drew them again after this, so that says a lot. But how is the actual drawing itself? It's pretty bad. There are a lot of things I dislike with this drawing. First thing is how shaky the line art is on the character. If you really look at it, you'll notice just how messy and wobbly it is. I guess I had shaky hands when I first started drawing. Next is the arms. Why is the left arm so much smaller and longer than the right arm? It's like it got stretched out or something. I wouldn't be surprised if I took the right arm and just stretched it out for the left. Also, the way I drew the arms coming out from her chest looks horrible. They are so massive, I guess she's just really jacked up in the upper arms or something. Next is the shading. If you look very closely, you'll notice how messy the shading is on her body. You can actually see lines I drew for the shade, since there's small lines separating the shade line and the shade fill-in. Also, the shading under her muzzle looks particularly bad, as it looks like she has stubble under her muzzle. So, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this one. Drawing 3. This was a drawing I made for an art trade I did with someone back in the day. You can tell I wanted to draw it anthropomorphic, but I didn't have the courage to fully draw it that way, as it's just breaching furry territory. But still kinda looks like it's on all fours? I honestly can't tell, and that could be partially because this character is randomly floating for some reason. I clearly didn't know how to draw side profile views for the head, because this is a weird mesh of both a side and quarter view, where I have its snout out to the side, but its ears are in view as if it's not from the side. It just looks weird. Not to mention, I only drew one eye. I get it's a side view, but as I said, this isn't a side view, not fully at least. It looks like there should be a second eye just above where the snout is and below the ear. I also don't know how I feel about this art style of mine back then. The fur is drawn really massive and bubbly, if that makes any sense. It's just really round, and it especially looks bad on the knees of this character. And the line art is pretty shaky in this drawing as well, but not nearly as bad as the last one, so at least there's some progression there. Drawing 4. This was another drawing I made for an art trade. I did a lot of trades back in 2018, so a lot of my art was other people's characters. Anyways, all I have to say is, why is it so fluffy? Like, who knew that there was a point where your character could be too fluffy? Also, just so everyone is aware, this character wasn't meant to be super fluffy. I just drew it like this for some wacky reason. I guess my art style just became a furry, fluffy mess after a while, because, like, this just looks bad. It's hard to look at, and the shading on this character doesn't help it either. I didn't shade accordingly to a light source. Like, what I mean is when you pick a side for your sun to be at, and shade your character as if they were in that sun lighting. Anyways, basically, the shade is just everywhere where the fluffy line art is, and it adds to the chaotic mess that is this fluffy character. I'm also not a fan of this character's head profile. I again did a side profile that just looks like a 3/4 profile, and its mouth and nose are really close to each other. Like, something looks very wrong here. To be honest, the nose in general is just a disaster. I mean, look at this thing. Drawing 5. These are drawings of an old candy kangaroo character of mine. I'm putting them together as one, as I drew her both as anthropomorphic and as a four-legged animal, in the same art style at the time. But it was kinda weird for a kangaroo character such as herself to be on all fours. Like, something is wrong about this drawing. And if it doesn't feel weird enough, well, she has a kangaroo pouch while she's on all fours. It just looks wrong. Like, it literally looks like a cow udder or something. I hate looking back at this drawing for this reason alone. But honestly, I'm also not a fan of how I shaded these drawings. Up until this, I was using a clean cell shade. Well, maybe not always clean. But I just don't like the airbrush shading. Some artists can perfect it, but I don't think I was one of them. It's not even dark enough of a shade where you notice it. It just looks like there's slight color alterations all around her body, which looks pretty bad. Even her eyes in the one drawing have this really nasty gray airbrush shade, and it just ruins the eyes. Not to mention her fingers on the anthropomorphic drawing. Like, I don't even want to talk about it. Let's just move on. Drawing 6. This was a drawing of my two characters, Emmy and Moon. Once again, it's insane just how many drawings I have of these two. And I'm super conflicted on this drawing. On one hand, I actually like it, going as far to say it's cute, and that the anatomy isn't even that bad. Other than the fact I drew both of their heads in side profile and 3/4, but let's just ignore that because I've already complained about that problem in 2 of my other drawings already. I think my issues from this drawing mainly stem from how much fur liner I've drawn on their bodies, and how crazy insane the shading/lighting is on them. Back then I just thought the more fur liner details the better, but it's just way too much here. It looks very messy. I basically just drew fur wherever there was free room on their bodies, leaving no space to escape the chaos. Not to mention that when I did shade, I also shaded all the areas with fur liner, with really thick shading too. It's just too much. Then I decided to go for a crazy shading that's all over the place in the most random fashion that included lighting that's also randomly placed. I didn't do the sun trick in the corner. Instead, I just became a madman and chose my own shading rules. Also, it was clearly an art style choice at the time, but their noses are so silly. They're just rounded ovals that pop out from their snouts, and I honestly don't know if I love or hate it, but I needed to mention it. Drawing 7. This was a drawing of Emmy I made for an Inktober Day prompt, which for anyone who doesn't know is a drawing challenge in the month of October, where you'd have to draw something each day in the month. I think the prompt was like candy or something, I don't remember, this was very long ago. But either way, what is going on with her facial expression? Why is she so concerned here? If she wants to eat the candy corn, eat it. It's as simple as that. But instead she's staring down at it with fear, with really creepy eyes, might I add. And she's doing this as her mouth literally drools. Or at least, I think her mouth's drooling. It's hard to tell. I mean, just look at it. What even is this mouth drawing? Is it even a mouth? It sort of just looks like a pink blob on her face. Anyways, if we look past this weird facial expression for Emmy, is the drawing at least good? I mean, kinda? I don't know, it's fine. I definitely have worse drawings, that's for sure. I'm not a fan of how I did the shading in this drawing. It's like massive. There's no way that her arm would create that much shade. Plus, why does she have a random strip of shade on her left ear? Because her left side of her head also has shade, so it's not some sun in the corner trick or anything like that. I just shaded random areas for no reason, once again. Drawing 8. This was a drawing of a golden retriever back when I was drawing different animals in my style, and this drawing makes me cringe, like a lot. I'm getting so much embarrassment just witnessing this drawing again. I made this when I was quite young, so I looked at a reference drawing for the pose, made by another artist, who I can't remember as it was years ago. I even posted this to my Instagram back on my old art account. Like, my family saw this drawing. That's horrifying. The pose is just so weird. Why is its back leg positioned like that? He's in such an exposed pose, and it's super uncomfortable for me to look back on. And it makes it all the worse when you realize I added a pink dot in the crotch area. Why did I do this? I think it was inspired off those anime cats with the cute little black dots for their bums. But this isn't a bum. Okay, Past Leamon? This isn't the bum area. I honestly pray for Past Leamon. She didn't know what she was posting to her 200 followers back in the day. Anyways, this drawing, despite the weird pose, is mostly fine. The face is a whatever expression, but it's more just where I placed it. The face is way too high up on the head, Like, there's so much empty space in the lower half of the face, which is something I struggled with for years. I don't know why, but putting the mouth near the bottom of the face was just impossible for me back then. But I think I made the dog's head way too large, because even if I moved the face down, it would look like it has a massive forehead, so the whole head drawing is just bad. Drawing 9. This was a drawing I did for an art trade with someone, and they look terrifying. That smile is definitely not a facade, and they're definitely not actually an evil demon who wants to attack me. Right? Guys, I'm scared of my own drawing. Okay, but I think the reason it's giving off a scary vibe is the fact I drew the eye pupils so small with a teethy smile, and having the character waving its hand doesn't help either. It just looks soulless, but in a creepy way. Anyways, other than the horrifying facial expression, is there any other issues with the drawing? Yes, there is. First of all, look at that paw pad. It's so massive on the character's hand, it literally overlaps it. If you saw its hand from the other side, you'd see a bit of the paw pad sticking out. Second, the shading is horrible. It's somehow gone worse from my last drawings, and that's saying a lot. This time around, it's not as intense, but it doesn't even make a lick of sense. Places that should have shade don't have shade, like behind its jaw in the fur area. Then places that shouldn't have shade have shade. Like, randomly I decided to give its right cheek fur shade, and its fur on the right side of its legs. Where is the source causing this shade? Nowhere. That's why it looks so gosh darn bad. Drawing 10. This is a drawing I did, and I honestly don't even remember if this was for an art trade, or if I just drew a wolf with flowers. It's such an unmemorable drawing, like I forgot I even made this, to be honest. This is when I was in my thick line art phase, and it doesn't look good. But I think that's because the line art is so thick. Like, there's a lot of people who do draw in a thick, cartoony style like this, but it's usually meant to be simple and non-detailed. But I was going for a thick line art style and trying to make it detailed, at least as detailed as I possibly could, and this drawing is a good example of why that doesn't work. Just look at the snail the wolf is holding in her hand. It's hard to even tell it's a snail, because the line art is so thick that the details, like the snail swirl or even its eyes, easily get lost in the drawing. Plus, I had so many limitations on what I could draw of this style. It's like I wanted to add detail, but just couldn't. I even had to limit how many nails I drew in her paws, because I don't think I could have fit more than one nail on each of her paws, when normally I draw around 2 nails on my characters. I also remember that I couldn't draw certain facial expressions, as it wouldn't fit on the character's head. That's most likely a bad sign. Drawing 11. This was an art trade I did with someone at my school, and I'm trying my best not to cringe at this one. It's clearly a character from Splatoon, a game I never really played, but I'm familiar with. But it just looks so bad. What did I do to this poor character? First and foremost is the insane cop-out on the backwards hat. Instead of drawing it properly, I just shoved it to the back of the head, because I clearly didn't want a challenge with this drawing. And where did I even place the hat relative to the character's head? Because the more I look at it, the more I'm confused. The hat doesn't even look like it should be placed there. And to make matters worse, even though this is a front view of the character, I decided to make the hat brim, or whatever it's called, pop out to the right side. I just hate looking at this character's hat. The more I do, the more I die on the inside. But going away from the hat travesty, I also have other things I dislike with this drawing. I'm not a fan of how I did the shading. I know it's an artistic choice, but I don't like it. Going full line art color for the shading is just intense. Maybe just the neck for the line art shade is fine. I actually like doing that sometimes with my art. But having it everywhere is just extensive. It's just too much. I'm also not a fan of how I drew the little dot specks everywhere. This wasn't like color patterns for the character. This was a part of my art style at the time. It just feels chaotic and cluttered. I honestly think this drawing would look better without the dots everywhere. Actually, why don't we see it for ourselves? It does look a lot better, wow. Crazy how a small change can really affect a drawing. Drawing 12. This one's painful to revisit. Prepare yourself to cringe. Like, what even is this pose? What's going on with the character's face? And why do I feel so embarrassed looking back on it? This was a drawing I made for an art trade with someone, so sorry to whoever's character this was. I can tell the character's cute, the art just ain't it. I was doing the most random poses at this time, and this drawing is a great example of just that. He's sort of just floating, I guess, with his front paws up as he's begging for something, and then his back legs awkwardly crossed. Also, look how small his paw pads are. I went from enormous paw pads to super tiny ones. I just couldn't get those right. I think the actual line art is nice in this drawing. It's just the way I drew it that I hate so much. His whole pose feels stiff, which you can especially notice in the body and tail. And the character's head and face have a lot of issues too. Something feels off about the character's face, which at first glance is hard to place, especially since I don't want to look at this drawing for more than a first glance. But if you do, you'll notice a few issues. Firstly is the eyes. They're a bit small in this character's head, but even so, even if they are just small, they're just placed way too far from the side profile view. They should be closer to the character's front side of its head. But even if they are moved, it still looks weird, because they also need to be lower so they are closer to the character's nose and mouth. Plus, the nose in this character should be at the very tip of the muzzle. It's placed in the middle and it adds to the weird face this character gives off. Like, if I tweak some things, here's an example of what I mean. This looks a lot better than the original. Still a bad drawing, there was truly no way to save this drawing, but it looks a lot better, at least. Drawing 13. This was a drawing I made of myself, and it's definitely a drawing of a human made by someone who draws animals all the time. There's some small details that just give off furry artist, if you know what I mean. I'm mainly talking about the way I drew my hair, by giving it a bunch of fluff at the top. Like, my hair doesn't have that much fluff at the top, I swear, but it's just such a furry artist thing to draw a bunch of fluff at the top of a head. Also, I'm not saying I'm a furry, I'm just saying I draw a lot of furry characters. Anyways, I do think it's funny that I drew nails on her fingers, not human nails, but animal nails, like what you'd draw on an animal paw. I clearly just liked the look of it and drew it on myself for that reason. Then we'll get into the part I think really ruins this drawing, as the other stuff is just funny things I did because I have a preference to draw animals. I really hate all the lines I drew all over myself. It's way too many, and it just makes this drawing feel so chaotic. If that wasn't already enough, I decided to shade on all of these lines. Like, it just looks so bad. If you take these lines away from the drawing, it becomes way better. Like, just look at it. It's almost like I wanted to add details to my drawings, but it just ends up hurting the drawing more in the process. Also, the eyes are kind of weird. I forgot to talk about them. Like, I don't know why they're way thicker than the other line art in this drawing. It's not supposed to be glasses, like people assumed back then. It's just Leamon being weird with her art style. Drawing 14. This was a drawing I made as fan art for a show called Beastars. I was obsessed with this show when I was younger, which is kind of weird because it's quite a mature show, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I drew both Haru and Legoshi. And there are a lot of problems in this drawing. I don't even know where to start. So if this part gets very unorganized, please forgive me. First, what's going on with their hands? Why do they look like that? I even hid one of Haru's hands because deep down, I probably knew how horrible they looked. Even so, I think they're worse on Legoshi. His fingers look broken and wrinkly. Why do they look so wrinkled? I seriously need to wash my eyeballs after this because I can't handle the sight of these hands. But it's not just the hands I'm repulsed by, because what is going on with their legs and feet? I know Haru is supposed to be doing the cutesy girl pose with her legs, but something is just off about the way I drew it. I think I spaced the legs out too much, or something, because I really don't like how her legs look here. Then there are Legoshi's horridly massive feet. Like, those are some massive shoes he's got on. Usually the hands and feet of a character can be comparable in sizes, with the feet being a bit bigger, but not here, because he's got these really small wrinkly hands and then just enormous feet. It looks so bad. Also, Haru's face looks really messed up drawing-wise. Like, I drew her head looking up to Legoshi, but her mouth is drawn as if she's looking straight across. So, I don't know what I was doing here. Drawing 15. This was a reference sheet I made for my character Emmy, which you've seen many times in this video alone. You could tell my art was getting better by this point, but I still made some noticeable mistakes. First of all, and most obvious, is her chest area. What was I thinking? Why does it look like that? That's not how you draw boobs. There, I said it. I said the word boobs. Are you happy? Anyways, it starts off fine at the top, but then it goes down to her tummy area where it should not be. It should have been way more up on her torso. It also should have been placed more out to the side. It looks weird with a line drawn so far into her body. I really hate looking at this drawing for this one reason alone. Also, why is she touching it? I mean, clearly it's to hide it, but like, it just looks weird. I posted this to the same Instagram account I was talking about earlier with 200 followers. My family was not prepared to see Emmy in this light. I also don't like how I drew her eyes in the quarter view for this drawing. Her eye on the left just appears from behind her snout line, or whatever I call that. I did this with my art back then. I get it, 3/4 views can be hard, but it just looks bad. And this is sort of small, but the way her left ear is coming up to her head just looks wrong. Like, it looks like it goes up higher than the other ear, but like, it's hard to notice, so it's not that bad. And that brings us to the end of this video. I had a lot of art in this video that I really cringed at, because a lot of them are painful to look back on. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I had fun making this video. It's so much fun to revisit your old art, even with the cringe. You guys should definitely consider looking back at your old art. Anyways, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing or liking my video. It means a lot to me. Thanks for watching, it's been Leamon, and I'll see you guys all next time.